Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today I'm going to kind of show you guys more of a revamped version of my beach tumbler tutorial. This has always been a big hit in my shop every summer, and I hope it will be in yours as well. As always, I'll make sure to put everything that I use today into the description box so that way you guys can easily find it if you need to. So let's grab our favorite drinks, wake up, prep those tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. Working with a big one today. This is a 30-ounce skinny tumbler that I purchased through the Stainless Depot company, but please feel free to use any type of tumbler you already have on hand. That tumbler is prepped and primed white. So we're just using 4 different types of glitters today. For the sand, I'm going to be using golden. Then making the way up the tumbler, I'm going to be using Blue Lagoon from Mr. Nola's Glitter. Then for the middle light blue part, I'm going to be using ice. And for the top part, I'm going to be using sapphire, and that is a navy color glitter. I'm going to go ahead and pop my lids here. I like to use the spout side as opposed to the shaker side when I do this. So let me go ahead and get myself adjusted here. Now, the epoxy that I am using is from Alumilite. This is their amazing clear cast line, but please feel free to use your favorite epoxy. Now I'm just go ahead and glove up here, and we are going to get started on glittering. Oh, hold on. I dropped it. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, anyways, now I'm just going to apply a very small amount of epoxy onto this tumbler. You might see me add just a little bit more than usual. It's a big guy, so it kind of took just a little bit more. You just want a very thin coat all over your entire tumbler. You want to make sure you rub it down really well, make sure you rub the bottom down really well, so that way when we apply those glitters, it has something to stick to. Don't forget those rims either. All right, the first glitter I'm going to start with is the bottom, which is called golden, and that will be what looks like the sand part of the tumbler. Now, each section I just want to make sure that each section is exactly the same width as the next one up. So I'm doing 3 big sections here of these colors, which you will see. Now, if I go up about 2.5 inches, I'm going to make sure that each section is about the same width as that first section that I started here. You also may have noticed that I'm not really doing much of an ombre, especially in the sand area here. I don't want too much of an ombre, and I will show you why here in a second. I kind of want more of a straight line across as opposed to an ombre look. So now I'm going to go ahead and move my piece of paper off to the side here, and we're going to move on to the middle section of our beach tumbler. I am going to leave a very tiny gap in between this ice blue and golden down there at the bottom. And I will show you guys here, or, after I'm done in a second here, exactly why I did that. So I'm going to go ahead and make my little section here. Again, I'm just going to make sure that that section kind of is about the same size as my sand section. And after I get this glitter nice and loaded up, we'll move on to the dark blue for the very top. So here's a little bit more up close look at that little gap that I left there. As you can see, it's very tiny, very tiny. I'll show you why in a second. Okay. All right, I'm going to move that ice off to the side, and we're going to go ahead and add our sapphire around the top of our tumbler here. These colors are completely optional. You guys could do pinks, purples, whatever color you would like. There is no right or wrong when it comes to making art. All right, now that I'm done with my navy here, I'm going to go ahead and put that off to the side. Now I'm going to take my Blue Lagoon, and I'm going to fill in that gap down there that I left open. Now you see why I left that little gap. I wanted it all to kind of lay on the outside of all those other glitters. So I wanted to make sure that I left a gap so that we had enough room to get in there, stick down, and be nice and flat against my tumbler. All right, now is the time to kind of zhuzh anything up that you need to. I'm going to go ahead and kind of fix this little area up here next to my sapphire. I just didn't really like the way that blended, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then I'm going to let that hang dry for about 4 hours. After that 4 hours is up, it's ready for its next coat of epoxy. I'm going to spray it down really well with my 2x Ultra Sealer by Rust-Oleum. I do that just so that way none of those glitters shift around, and it really helps out with those glitters wicking away, possibly wicking away your epoxy. So I'm going to go ahead and apply my epoxy here. I'm going to hit it up really good with my torch, and then I'm going to let that spin overnight. All right, here it is the next morning and it is ready for some waves. But the first thing we want to do is kind of prep our tumbler. So let me pop it off my plunger wand here. I'm going to clean up my rim really well. That's the first thing you want to do. Clean those rims as you go. It really helps out in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. I'm also going to sand it very well. You just want to make sure that there's no point sticking up there. It really didn't need to be sanded too much. I just kind of wanted to get any of those little pieces of glitter that were sticking up down, so that way those waves didn't get snagged on any little pieces of glitter sticking up. After you're done sanding, you just want to wipe it down really well with a tack cloth or wash it with your Dawn soap and water just to remove any little particles from the sanding process. All right, now let's get our gloves on. And I have my epoxy all mixed up here. I made enough epoxy to be able to coat my tumbler really well. I probably added about 20 to 30 mLs of epoxy on top of this. I know I don't typically tell you guys my mLs because it really varies from project to project. And typically I'm doing lots of projects in between my one project, but that's probably about how much of epoxy that I used, because you want to make sure that there's enough area for when we go to apply those waves, that those waves have enough space to move and do their thing. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all epoxied up, and then I'm going to show you guys the next step. I'm going to make sure to leave a little bit of epoxy left for myself in the bottom of that cup so that way we can make our waves with it. I'm going to go ahead and go put my tumbler out on my turner and get that going, and I'm going to mix up the waves. Or as you can see, you just need a very tiny amount. I'm using this white opaque dye from Alumilite, and I'm also using Blanco Blanco from Pinata. I like these two together because one is specifically made for epoxy, and it's a very nice colorant for your epoxy. You don't need much. I'm going to show you here in a sec. Oh, I accidentally dropped on the side of the cup. That's okay. That's all right. I just took 3 dabs. That's it. That's all I needed to help with that coloring of my epoxy in there. And with the Blanco Blanco, I really feel like it helps out with the lacing effect that you can get once you put it onto your tumbler. So the dye is more to dye it, and the alcohol ink is more to help out with that lacy look. I only added about 3 or 4 drips from that Blanco Blanco into my mix. All right, our tumbler's happily awaiting its waves here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just keep mixing that up there just to make sure everything's nice and diluted into that epoxy. Sometimes things start to separate from each other in there. You just wanna make sure it's nice and mixed in there. Now I have my blow dryer, and I will tell you more why I like to use a blow dryer here in a minute. But first, let's apply our waves. I'm going to take my fancy little spatula here that I got from the dollar store, and I'm just going to line around where the shoreline is on my tumbler, and I'm just going to come up all the way right up into that blue. I'm going to keep all my waves right in the center of my tumbler here. Now this part is completely abstract. Wherever you think these waves need to go, put them there. You can add as little or as much waves as you would like. And because we made sure to add enough epoxy and on the bottom layer here, you can already tell that those waves have more than enough room to shift around and give us that wave look. Now I am going to take my fancy blow dryer here, and I am going to start at the top and work my way down all the way around the tumbler until everything starts to just shift. Then I'm going to change directions, and I'm going to take that blow dryer and blow from the bottom to the top of my tumbler just until, again, everything kind of starts to move around. I don't so much want heat, but I want it to move. As you can see, all those waves get pushed up and get pushed down with the movement of the blow dryer. I feel like a heat gun really doesn't provide that. It's more of a heating source. And I know for sure you don't want to use any type of open flames on this because we used alcohol inks in there, and it might set your tumbler on fire, especially if you use a lot of alcohol ink in with your mix. So that's why I highly recommend a blow dryer over anything else. Now this is the most important part. I didn't cut this down at all. I wanted you guys to see how long it took me to do these waves, because I want you to know you don't need to work on it that long. Just move it around, set your blow dryer down, and walk away for 15 minutes. I still have some of my epoxy mixture left over right here, which we will come back in 15 minutes and see if we need to add any more waves or not to it. But that's the most important part. Walk away, let it do its thing, and then when you come back, it's going to look completely different. All right, it's been 15 minutes and look how much different it looks. You can see all the lacing here at the top. There is a bunch down here at the bottom as well. I think it looks really good and I'm very happy with how this turned out. All because I walked away. See? Looks totally different when you come back. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of take my wand and help a couple little places out here. I'm going to drag it down into the sand a little bit. You know, it doesn't have to be exact. This is going to continue to just kind of shrink and form and kind of do its thing. This is just you kind of touching up any little areas or blobs that were left or adding just a little bit more if you'd like to. And then again, after that, you're just going to let it be. You're not going to do anything else to it. You're going to let that go overnight, let that cure up. You can add your decals to it. If you just want a name or a decal, you can add it to it then after that. And then it is ready for its last 2 finishing coats of epoxy. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this kind of revamped version of my beach tumbler. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.